By the Fire presents A Desperate Soul by Dave Smale. Read for you by the author. Chapter 19. Pastor Billy pulled to a stop in front of Jacob's house. He'd taken Jacob to the grocery store and purchased him a few days' supply of food. "All right now. No getting into any more fights," Billy said.
I guess I'll have to cancel the rest of my appointments then,"
Jacob quipped. They shared a laugh, and Jacob winced as he opened the door. "Hey, Jacob."
"Yeah?"
"You busy around, Billy looked at his watch and said, 5 or so?"
Let me check my schedule,"
Jacob said, checking no schedule.
"Yep. I'll be busy watching Judge Judy all afternoon. Oh, wait. My grandma doesn't have a TV. Looks like I'm free."
The pastor snickered.
"Why?"
"I may need your help with something. I'll let you know." Jacob nodded and exited the vehicle. Pastor Billy picked up his phone from the center console. He performed a Google search for a local business and dialed the number that was returned by the search. About that time, Jacob made it to the front door, turned and waved Billy waved back and pulled away from the curb. The business's number rang twice before a man answered. Billy spoke with him briefly, then to the manager, then shook his head in disappointment. At the next stop sign, he dialed another number. It was answered on the 5th ring, just before it would have gone to voicemail. "Hey, baby girl," said the pastor.
"Hey, Dad. What's up?"
Talitha replied. "You working today?" asked Billy.
Today? Yeah, until 4:30.
"Okay. Want to meet up for lunch?" Billy asked.
No, I don't think... I can't," she said.
"You don't think you can't, so that means you can?"
"Very funny, Dad. No, I mean I have plans already."
"Oh, I see. See you at home tonight, then?"
"I guess so." "You never call me like this. Is everything okay?" she inquired.
Yeah. Just, we haven't hung out in a while, and, you know."
"I know what?" she said.
"That's all. Just wanted to try and have lunch with my daughter. That's all, but that's fine. Maybe another day."
Okay," she said.
"Love you," he said before hanging up. She didn't say it back. The manager at Talitha's alleged employer, whom Billy called just before he called her, confirmed that she'd been let go weeks prior. Had he not been driving, Billy would have hung his head. Talitha had been hired and fired by multiple employers in the past few years, so many he'd lost count. It was as if she couldn't keep a job to save her life. Unless she'd somehow found another job in the last few weeks and failed to tell her parents, she was lying about working altogether. More concerning, she no longer seemed to have any friends. At least, no one Billy knew of. All her friends from school and church had either moved away or cut her off. Even her fiancé had disappeared. Talitha had apparently lied about going to the oceanfront with the street evangelism team the night Jacob saw them there. If she was willing to lie about something so menial, what else was she lying about? Talitha had grown slowly distant the past few years, and as Billy pondered, he realized he'd caught her in more lies since she'd turned 18 3 years ago than all her adolescent years combined. He just didn't want to admit it, and he was afraid to confront her about it. So, he'd left it alone. Left her alone. He justified it to himself, saying he had enough issues to deal with the congregation. And therein, he knew, lay the real problem. Pastoring a church of several hundred members meant he spent an inordinate amount of time as a counselor. He hadn't had time for whatever issues were going on with his daughter. In fact, he counseled people so often he felt more like a psychiatrist that gave speeches 3 times a week than a preacher who pastored a congregation. People's issues took up most of his time. He couldn't even find the time to go out with the street evangelism teams anymore, something he once loved. He used to make time for his family, but that was before the church had exponentially grown. Now it was hard to find time to think, let alone hang out with anyone. No wonder Talitha thought it was weird that he'd called her out of the blue and wanted to hang out. I'd think that was odd too if I were her, Billy thought. Billy parked outside the church, shut off the engine, and stared at the clouds, which floated by as if they had somewhere to be. Billy, on the other hand, definitely had somewhere to be. He had another counseling appointment in 7 minutes, for which he knew he should prepare. But he simply couldn't help himself. He pondered the fact that throughout the early days of his ministry, he would pray every morning for an hour or more. He would then read the Bible, studying it for at least another hour before he went to work. Frequently, he'd evangelize spontaneously. Often, he and Taylor would open their apartment for get-togethers. Now, he could only find time to pray for a few moments prior to each church service during the quote-unquote designated time of prayer, a 1-hour block he'd mandated years earlier for the church staff. Even then, his prayers were often interrupted by staff alerting him to various issues requiring his immediate attention. His Bible study time had been reduced to zilch. His personal evangelism had evaporated completely. Billy couldn't remember the last time they'd opened their home for a get-together, but he was certain it hadn't occurred since they'd moved into their new house. The other night, when he'd taken Jacob to a coffee shop for his experiment, was the first time in years he'd personally told anyone about Jesus. Though the man had rebuffed him, Billy remembered the exhilarating feeling that accompanied evangelism and how much he missed it. It felt like he was really doing God's work. Billy realized that he could devote himself to ministry full time. Could being the operative word. He'd have time to pray in the mornings and study his Bible. The problem was, his job was lucrative. Billy had justified staying at the job by telling himself he didn't want to be a burden to the church by taking a salary. Deep down, he knew that wasn't the issue. He didn't want to lose $85,000 a year. Yet, in doing so, he was both misleading his congregation and showcasing a serious lack of faith. I've become my worst nightmare, he thought. I'm not a pastor anymore. I'm an administrator. I live in the glass bubble of my office. I've lost touch with my family, my congregation, and with God. His thoughts shifted to young Jacob and his strange new ability. Earlier that day, Jacob said Billy was still wearing the transparent body armor, which Billy assumed was a literal representation of the biblical armor of God. Jacob said Billy's shield was strapped to his back, and he didn't have a sword. In short, it meant he was not an effective soldier. It was more than a little unnerving. The scriptures said that the sword of the Spirit was also known as the Word of God. Pastor Billy not only gave the Bible scant attention these days, but he also rarely quoted it, unless it came across the pulpit during a sermon. The Word of God was all but gone from his personal life. Of course I don't have a sword, he thought. His sword was missing. But that didn't mean it was gone forever. Billy checked his watch. 5 minutes until his appointment. Never too late to make a fresh start, he thought. He bowed his head, closed his eyes, and began to pray. Lord Jesus, please forgive me. At 5:04 p.m., Pastor Billy and Jacob pulled away from the curb in front of Jacob's house.
So what do you need my help with?
Jacob asked. Something in my house, or I should say, someone. Jacob looked confused for a moment, but then realized.
Talitha?
He asked. The pastor nodded, turning onto Virginia Beach Boulevard and heading toward his house. Thanks to his lucrative job, Billy and his family had been debt-free for over a decade. They had saved money for years in order to buy a house outright once the time came. The idea was simple. They didn't want a house payment. They had never felt any prompting from God to buy a home as they imagined they would have. One day, Taylor simply said, "Are we going to live in this Cracker Jack box forever? If so, that's fine. I just want to mentally prepare myself." Billy took the hint. The time to buy a home had come. While they were house shopping, they'd agreed that the main function of their home was to be a blessing to others more than it was to provide them shelter or comfort. Their home would always be open for get-togethers, just like their tiny apartment had been. However, they'd have an even greater capacity for serving others with a house. They'd likely have a backyard. There would not be assigned parking like their apartment building. If God blessed them with a good home, then they would be sure to return the blessing upon others. Not only would they have get-togethers or fellowships, but if anyone in the church fell on hard times and needed a place to stay, they'd be much better suited to provide for them with a house. They had done it when they were in their apartment for several people on multiple occasions, but it had been extremely cramped, difficult, and frustrating for all parties involved. Billy and Taylor's new house was not a luxurious mansion, but neither was it a humble dwelling. It was a 2-story, 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath, colonial-style ranch home. It was built on just over an acre of land. A stream ran along the back of the property. It had been a steal at just under $100,000. Other homes in the area were going for triple that or more. The house had been vacant for over 2 years, making it far past the foreclosure stage. It was a repo, their realtor told them. Buying it at such a low price meant they still had plenty of money to use toward equity. Since moving in, they had power washed the siding, replaced the carpet throughout, installed new countertops and a tile floor in the kitchen. They had added a new bathtub and shower tiles in one of the bathrooms. Currently, they were replacing the kitchen cabinets. The kitchen looked like a war zone. Aside from that, the inside of their house was stunning. But that was the problem. Because their house was so beautiful inside and out, they'd failed to keep their promise of opening their home for fellowships. Actually, Taylor had suggested inviting people over several dozen times at this point, but there was always some logical reason for why Billy claimed they couldn't. Usually he blamed whatever house project they were working on currently. The number of people who'd been over to their house since they'd moved in was 2. Turnette and another man from the church named Jim, and that was only just to help them move in. No one else even knew where their home was. Instead of inviting people to their home, they usually just treated a person to lunch or dinner every so often. That was getting costly. Taylor complained that she'd rather save the money and have people over to their house, but Billy has gotten spoiled, he thought. And worse than that, he admitted, I've tried to sanitize myself for my congregation, Oh, God, please forgive me.
You okay?
Jacob asked, noticing that Billy seemed lost as they weaved through the narrow neighborhood streets. Huh? Oh, yeah, I'm just thinking, he replied.
Nice neighborhood,
Jacob commented. Pastor Billy wasn't certain whether Jacob meant it as a slight or a compliment. Likely the former. The neighborhood was filled with expansive 2- and 3-story houses on massive lots. Towering oak trees on either side of the street stretched together, their branches entangling, forming a continuous canopy above the street. The 5 o'clock summer sun hung low in the sky. Its fleeting rays found gaps between the dense branches and trickled into Jacob's window. It reminded him of a scene from his youth. His throat clenched as he recalled his parents' final day on Earth. The late afternoon sun rays on his face, the smell of the horses, the cornfields, and his mother's soft flowery perfume. The same scent as the elusive Shayna. He remembered his mother's sweet face and his dad's warm smile. "Okay, here we are," Billy said, snapping Jacob from his memory. The pastor parked along the sidewalk, motioning toward a house at their left, half a block away. Parked in the driveway was a small burgundy coupe.
You're not gonna park in your own driveway?
Nah. My daughter's home and I don't want her to sneak away. She tends to do that when I get home, but usually it's later than this. My wife isn't home yet either. All right, so here's all I need from you. I'd like you to tell me what you see when we go in there. Is she wearing the body armor like I am, or does she have the, Jacob nodded, understanding that the pastor couldn't bear the thought of his daughter chained to demons. Then we can grab some dinner afterward if you want, Billy said.
Well, kinda hurts to eat, and you already bought me groceries. But who am I kidding? I'm always up for that.
All right, let's go.
Hey, it's Jacob. I'm not a real rock star, but I might loosely be based on the author, who's also not a rock star. Hey, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and tell you about Anchor. If you haven't heard about it, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First off, it's free. Also, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast, like right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast so it can be heard on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm right now to get started.
Thank you so much for listening to By the Fire. Hey, would you do me a favor? Would you rate this podcast? Maybe go on Spotify or Apple or wherever you like to download your podcasts and just leave me a rating. 5 stars would be nice, but I want you to be honest. Also, did you know that you can support this podcast? Yes, by more than just subscribing, which, by the way, why don't you subscribe while you're at it? Anyway, go to anchor.fm/bythefirewithdave/support. It works kind of like Patreon, if you're familiar with that. Any generous financial donation you make, don't worry, I'm not going to keep it. And you can read all about that in the show notes. Thank you again, and God bless you. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents are either the products of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental.